Hi and welcome to Brainstorm, Saskatchewan's only podcast where we talk about news, politics, science, and religion from a skeptical atheist perspective. This is episode 14, recorded on July 26, 2014. I'm Corey, and with me tonight are Mike, Rene, Dave, and Lana. Common science myths that most people believe. We only use 10% of our brains.
Oh, that stupid movie that just came out.
This is a big deal all of a sudden.
Actually, all I can think of is from Wedding Crashers. You know, we only use 10% of our brains. I believe we only use 10% of our hearts.
Wait a sec.
That's deep.
You don't, what?
Yeah, it's from Wedding Crashers. He was trying to hook up. It's not supposed to make sense. It's just supposed to sound sappy.
Well, it certainly does that.
You need the entire occipital lobe for your vision. That's like that's fucking more than 10% right there just to deal with vision.
You're talking like you know something about the brain, Mike.
I do know something about the brain.
Is there a
I admit it.
statistic that shows how often people trust Morgan Freeman? This is what I'm wondering, because
I
when
bet
he says
that's
it in the trailer, it sounds very convincing.
It totally
in
does.
the trailer of
doesn't
that
it?
film. I don't know what the film's called. I don't really care what it's
Lucy.
Lucy.
called. Oh.
You know, it looks like it would be awesome if she got her powers from, say, a random drug or...
Yeah.
Well, actually, that's what it is.
Well, it is a random drug.
It's a random drug.
Yeah.
But if it was like, this is the superpower drug, I'd be more accepting if it would than if she can use 10%
You can
more
use
than
100% of your brain.
Well, that is actually how the plot is. He's smuggling drug, and then it gets into her system, and then it awakens her brain.
Yeah, but it's not like generic superpower drug. It awakens her brain drug.
I think it's called superpowered LSD.
Superpower drug.
Yeah.
This is annoying me, so I'm going to have to rant about it just a little bit.
Yeah, by all means.
You have all of these different brain events that go on. You have an event that's associated with your smell of burnt toast. You have an event that's associated with what you feel when you're having sex. You have an event that's associated with seeing a red Corvette. You know, these are all brain events that are going on. Now, if we could use 100% of our brain at the same time, our heads would just, brains would start leaking out our ears. Not literally. That's just nonsense. You can't have all possible brain events at once.
Agreed.
But you use
sense.
all of your brain. It just isn't all active at once, because that would be nonsense. You can't have every sensory experience possible for you to have all at the same time.
It would be severe overstimulation.
Yeah,
no
kidding.
That just
Probably
doesn't
put you
make
into a
sense.
seizure.
And then you can't stop the world and control it like it's a Kinect game. Wave your hand, people stop.
So it doesn't give you superpowers.
Oh.
Well, we can use 100% of our brain already, just not all at once. So no part of our brain is so far giving us superpowers.
What happens when, this is an interesting idea. I don't know if you ever saw this one special. I can't remember what channel it was on, but it was people with real superpowers, right? It was kind of a gimmicky thing, but it was neat because they showed some guys who had some really extra abilities compared to the average brain. So, for instance, a guy who can sit in sub-zero temperatures for much longer than the average person. Like this guy ran a marathon up north, shirtless, with no clothes on, basically, besides his gitch, and ran a marathon length and survived, without anything. Frostbite was the only real concern, but it actually never happened. But anyway, my point is so what process of the brain makes that happen then? Is that just literally training it, or is that something that's genetic, that he has a disposition to that?
That does not sound like just a brain thing.
Well,
that sounds like a full body thing.
But the brain controls that regulation, right?
Well, it would control your feeling of it as well. It would control whether you feel pain.
Yeah.
But whether you actually get frostbite is
the brain
another
doesn't
matter.
determine whether or not you get frostbite.
That part, yeah,
it
for
might
sure.
have a role to play.
But I'm wondering, if any brain process could actually help him regulate the way his body is reacting to that. You know what I mean?
It must.
There is training, because I want to say Navy SEALs actually do training to be able to withstand extreme cold, water, Like I was watching, was it like Fight Science or something like that? Where what they did was they tested the training of a Navy SEAL. Where what they did was they threw him in a tank full of ice water with a.
Yeah, I saw that.
You saw that one? and they were just trying to test at what point he gets hypothermia, and because of his training, they could never bring his core temperature down.
Right.
So
That Fight Science is a great show.
it is. I mean, it's still TV, so you do kind of
course.
watch it with a kind of grain of salt and hint of I don't know, but
So-
it is kind of neat.
So the only reason why I bring that up is because I'm thinking to myself, well, then, is there certain aspects of your brain that you actually can at some point unlock like that like certain, such say aspects, abilities of your brain to do things like that? You know, like
I'd say yes and no.
I don't know.
Your brain is most plastic during its formation when you're young, right?
Right.
So if you have the right kind of conditioning during your upbringing, you could be more resistant to cold. You could, have certain abilities. They've discovered that when you're learning language as you grow up, all of the different sounds you can make, all of the different sort of grammars that your brain is ready to receive, get shuffled off. Your brain forms for the language that you're taught.
Of course.
So as you grow older, it gets harder to learn new languages than it is when you're younger because your brain becomes less and less plastic.
Hence accents.
Right.
Sure.
Right?
But then I think to myself, like, I don't know. Like, I think there are some things that are obviously like you inherently do, right? Like, I mean, there's some people who just have better hearing than other people, or some people have better.
Some people
sight than
have
other
better
people.
singing voices, and that.
Well, yeah. I mean, while
Or
there is an
they-
aspect of it that's learned and nurtured, there's also an element of it that is, genetic.
Yeah.
So I kind of think to myself, would that be something? Like, I don't know. Like would it be? Would you genetically dispositioned to be able to fight the cold temperatures? I don't know.
Possibly.
Like I don't know. That's so,
I usually side with nurture a little bit hardcore. I think that there's too much stock put into genetics. I think nurture plays a larger role than a fair number of people acknowledge. Yeah, nurture versus nature.
Do you have 3 hours or 2 weeks?
Yeah.
For what it's worth, nature is just long-term nurture, evolution. Mm-hmm. So all nature is nurture over a long period of time. Yeah. So nurture is still the ultimate control there. So I'm just trying to justify the bias that I clearly have for nurture over nature.
Yeah.
Well, as long as you can acknowledge that. That's
I know damn well I'm biased.
yeah.
Oh, yes.
I'm fairly even. I think there's an even mix of things happening. But
well, there's definitely, there's a lot to be said about genetics.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be said about nature. It is important. Mm-hmm. But I think nurture plays a large role in things like what we're talking about now, having abilities. And
That's, I don't know. I guess it's maybe the Fight Science reference, but it made me think of the Navy SEALs training where they can fire off, the snipers, trained snipers can fire off a shot in between heartbeats.
Yeah, because their own heart rhythm can throw it when they're shooting over, a mile and a
they
half.
take like diazepam or whatever it's called.
Yeah, because
They calm themselves so deeply that
And so does the drug they're taking.
right. So their hearts beat there's actual space.
I might have misnamed the drug. I don't know.
I don't know. But in the show,
The far recesses.
they made it seem as though the training was what did it, not the drug. Is what they also had guys climbing, untrained guys versus trained guys, climbing a rock wall in winter mountain conditions. And the guy who was untrained obviously didn't last very long. Mm-hmm. Where the guy who was trained, he knew how to keep his blood flow going. Like he could take his arm off and flex his fingers or whatever he had to do so that he could keep grabbing onto rocks to keep going, climbing the rock wall.
Wait a minute, back up. Take his arm off?
Well, totally. Just
I can put my arm
remove it
back
from
on. You can.
Yeah, no, not quite literally like that. But he could let go of the wall, and yes, not take. There is a dark side of the moon. That must be a myth, right? From our
Yes.
perspective on Earth, we are able to view about 59% of the moon's surface, though not at all at the same time.
Wouldn't the dark side of the moon at any given time be the side that's facing away from the sun?
But
Wouldn't
people
that be
people
darker?
think there's a side that
That never
we're
gets
never
sun.
able to see.
Yeah.
But I don't think
it
that's
totally
true.
turns.
That's where the space Nazis are, and
Yeah, and the secret government laboratories
Yep,
for
yep.
the Illuminati.
And an awful Transformers plot waiting to happen.
yeah,
Yeah.
no kidding.
Yeah.
Well, the Illuminati should be in the Transformers plot.
It should be. It's just as awful.
Just as awful. Just as bullshit.
Next.
The full moon affects behavior.
Oh.
I still hear this one all the time. Like
Yeah.
even my dad today said this.
I don't know.
He
My
saw a lot
mom
of-
was of the opinion, she was a nurse, and she was the opinion they were usually busier on full moon. But
I don't know.
I
Working in
No,
a bar,
statistics don't play out that way.
working in a bar, it seemed that people were a little nuttier on full moons. Although I was more of just a smart ass comment, but
Is there a way to actually measure this? This is my question.
Not
well,
really.
in ER rooms
No.
there actually is.
I guess in the ER rooms.
Because they can say like,
Yeah, but
well,
that's
no,
controlled.
we're no more active on full moons than we are on.
That's
regular
controlled.
days.
I mean, we might actually be more fucked during the full moon for psychosomatic reasons.
Right.
Yeah.
It might be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So in a social situation where everybody is convinced of woo, everybody's convinced that they're going to act crazy, so they all affect each other and cause crazy activity.
or people are just out and about more on a full moon because there's more light.
So then more stuff happens. It reminds me of the I was arguing with a person on my Facebook, as usual.
No.
And I said, okay, so it turns out that the moon does affect us gravitationally, but it's 0.00000000001% of our weight is increased. Something you'll never, ever, ever notice. I might have got the wrong number of zeros.
I figured you weren't quoting that.
Yeah.
I figured you didn't memorize that
But
number.
then she replied, but it's still an effect. So
Well,
There-
at
once
there's
this,
somebody's convinced that it will affect
at
them,
this
that's-
point, there's no proof that it does have an effect on human behavior. I don't mind if people want to spend some time trying to study whether or not there is, or prove whether or not there is. Go ahead. Try design a study that will discern this effect. But until you've done that, then you can't reorganize all your police work schedules
No.
or ER work schedules based on full moon.
It's anecdotal, and I make the jokes about it, but in reality, no, it's bullshit.
yeah, mostly. Yeah. There's no good reason why it would.
Well,
Other than it's more light. And if you got about some yahoos out doing some, vandalism or running around, teenagers running around, there might be a little more of that when it is a full moon. But, aside from that, direct effect, I don't see a lot of other reasons.
I don't see
Really.
any reason for it actually working, but I can see people believing that it does because people believe all sorts of shit about astrology. There's only 12 different kinds of, or 13, I guess now, different kinds of people
Yeah.
because planets.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right.
So clearly the moon can completely affect our personality because look at how planets must affect our personality, which is just
Agreed.
the astrology garbage bullshit view of the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So that might be a part of the whole moon woo.
Yeah, I can see it.
Woo.
Because it's a thing. It's in space. It must do something.
Yeah, clearly.
To us.
Yeah. My personality is the way it is because planets.
Yeah. Totally.
Uh-huh.
There's an asshole planet?
Nice.
I think the Klingons live there.
Kapla!
Kapla.
Okay. Sugar makes children hyperactive. Is also a myth.
But I think there are some food dyes that I have heard
right?
that there's
I'm not sure.
there are some types of food dyes that,
I've heard of
cause
that.
some kids to react badly.
It's like an allergy to red number or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, so it might be the food dye in the sugar that you're consuming that's messing with your kid rather than just the straight sugar. Because doesn't really make that much difference if you have some white bread or some straight up sugar. It's going to be
your
converted
insulin
rather
spike is the
quickly
same.
into sugar in your body anyway. So I don't really see a big thing there.
There's no, yeah.
Would there be any evidence
Kids on
for,
food are just crazy.
for crashing quicker, maybe, from having a lot of sugar? Like, would that be...
Yeah, but a bowl of mac and cheese is pretty nearly going to do the same thing.
I know
like a Slurpee?
there was a study that that looked at the way the way parents perceive kids acting, and after they told them that they were all on sugar or whatever, and they also the ones that weren't on sugar they thought, or the ones that the parents thought weren't on sugar, they said were less hyperactive.
Yeah.
And it was all about the perception of the adults more so than the...
So just like the moon woo, a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
Just because you believe it, it makes an effect.
It makes an effect. So,
It's kind of like a placebo effect.
yeah, it's exactly like what was I saying to...
I think, therefore, it is.
Like my kids' school limits certain lunch items based on their sugar content, but they don't limit, like you say, like bread. They don't say, well, no white bread to limit the insulin spike so that they get all this energy.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah, all an insulin spike is going to do is store fat.
yeah, that's right.
So
Yeah. That's not to say sugar intake shouldn't be limited. Average American consumes 156 pounds of sugar every year. Blah blah blah.
sugar is a poison. Don't
Well,
get me
yeah,
wrong.
it's not good. Like
He says as he eats M&Ms.
Yeah. You always eat two
And
chocolate
drinks
bar
alcohol.
products while you're here.
I generally do.
Yeah.
Drinking alcohol, eating candy.
Cheers.
A beacon of health.
I'll wash down that M&M with some scotch now, thanks.
Okay, new myth: lightning never strikes the same place twice.
I'm pretty sure that there's been trees that have been hit more than once. That I imagine that's been proved wrong in anecdotes quite a lot of times.
it doesn't say this in the article, but I was once led to believe that once lightning strikes a thing, it actually increases the chances of it striking it again.
I don't know.
I don't know if that's right either.
Yeah, no,
I think
It would
it's
have to
pretty
make
random.
it more conductive somehow in order for that to make
which
sense.
doesn't make sense. Yeah,
No, it doesn't.
that doesn't make sense.
The only explanation is unless it charges it somehow and that attracts it. But I don't know.
Yeah.
That's probably
Like
bullshit too.
tall things and metal things are going to
No,
get hit.
That's
more
at least a good
frequently.
hypothesis, that when it strikes something, it sort of robs it of charge or something, gives it a negative charge, so it would attract another opposite charge.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean that's just a
hypothesis.
hypothesis. Yeah, it doesn't sound like something that happens.
Lightning strikes the Empire State Building about 100 times a year.
Oh yeah, well,
Is it the tall
because
building?
it's tall. Yeah,
Yep.
And there is that big pointy thing at the top, which I believe is a lightning rod.
I think it's
Lightning rod.
made that way.
Yeah.
I was talking to a coworker, and he mentioned something about buildings with like a curved or circular lightning attractor attracting more lightning than ones with straight up. I don't know if that's a real thing.
no idea.
Don't know.
That might be worth looking
It's
into.
interesting that churches have lightning rods.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good call.
For a long time they didn't, and then they were burning down, and then people just decided that whatever.
If God is going to hit churches with lightning, at least we should ensure they don't burn down.
Yeah.
That's really cute,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Talk about faith.
Dropping a penny from a tall building will kill someone is
Or-
in fact not true.
the penny will hit terminal velocity and do some damage.
It wouldn't.
I would think it would give you a pretty bump on the head.
Because it would tumble and flip the entire way down,
Yeah.
its low mass and relatively low terminal velocity wouldn't do much damage to the bystander on the sidewalk.
It would probably hurt.
Maybe. Yeah,
Give
but
you a
wouldn't
pretty
actually
good
do
goose
damage,
egg.
right?
Getting a penny whipped at your head would suck. I mean, terminal velocity is based on resistance.
This sounds like something that should be on
It would
Mythbusters.
hurt. It would definitely hurt.
Mythbusters did it.
They did it.
They did it? Oh, okay, yeah. I could already see them putting the the gel head at the bottom of an Empire
Yeah, they
State Building.
totally did that.
Yeah.
Myth busted.
Yes, in fact. Yeah. Apparently the terminal velocity of a penny is 105 kilometers per hour.
That's pretty fucking fast.
That's still
That's
pretty
faster
fast.
than a baseball,
That would still hurt.
Yeah,
but it might not go through
but it
the
wouldn't
skull.
kill you. Yeah, no, it wouldn't
Well,
kill you.
it might if it hits you right in the eye socket. Drills its way into your brain.
The edge
Stranger
goes
things have
on through
happened.
your eye.
Hey, look up! What?
No. From now on, I'm never looking up.
I mean, you can kill a guy with a beanbag shotgun if you fire it into his throat. Same sort of thing, right? It's all about accuracy.
Yeah.
I mean, into his throat. I mean, when his mouth is open and he's screaming,
Right.
that will kill him. He'll choke to death.
Very
on it.
specific. Yeah.
Same thing with the penny falling off the building.
If he doesn't have glasses on and he's looking up and it's just
Yeah,
the right.
sure.
Yeah.
If you hit him just right, he will die. I'm sure.
Okay. Another one. Hair and fingernails continue growing after death.
Nope.
Is apparently a myth.
Yeah, of course it is. Actually, your skin recedes. Since your
That makes
skin
sense.
recedes, there's this myth that your fingernails are growing because they appear longer.
Hence vampire myths.
Oh, okay.
What
That
about
makes
those
sense.
morbid Catholic bodies that are still in perfect shape, apparently? What is that?
I haven't heard of that.
You never heard of that before?
No.
They have bodies that are in perfect condition, and they put them on display in different churches. They're saints.
They've been mummified by some
freaky.
process.
It's really weird. It's really weird. But the bodies do look fairly intact. But they have to do something to them. There's no way they just leave them sitting there.
You'd imagine.
Because that's the claim, is that it's just perfect.
Like Lana said, they'd have to be mummified
Yeah,
or
exactly.
something in
Yeah,
some way.
Look it
there's
up.
some kind of chemical
What are they-
treatment.
There's a term for this, and I wish I could remember it.
Which is really weird because I actually did an anthropology paper on rituals around burials and actually worrying about vampires and stuff like that in rural areas in Greece. They actually, when they bury you, they determine how fast your body's decomposing is kind of a judgment on your how good of a life you lived. So if you're not decomposing quick enough, then this guy was a bad guy. He might come back as a vampire, as a revenant. And there was one story where what they did was they knew this guy was a complete and utter asshole. He beat his wife. He was an alcoholic. He gambled, the whole 9 yards. So what they normally do is after a period of, I can't remember exactly what it was, something like 3 to 5 years, what they would do is after they bury you, because of limited space, is the reality of it, they then rebury you and incorporate you into the village tomb. What they did was with this guy, they knew he was an asshole, so they purposely waited 7 years before they dug him up. Because they didn't want to have, dig him up and, he is a revenant and, he's going to come back. But, that's it. I just find that funny that
The revenants were a thing.
well,
That's not a thing in real life. That's
Well, it's
But it's-
basically zombies. A revenant is basically
Yeah,
The
zombies.
term in the Catholic Church is incorruptible saints. That's what they call it.
incorruptible saints.
Saints whose bodies are miraculously preserved after death, defying the normal process of decomposition.
So this is the opposite of what Renee is talking
That's-
about.
that's-
those
yeah, exactly.
those people in this culture would
Are-
clearly be evil people.
Yeah.
evil. They would,
Decomposing.
they would be freaking out.
Maybe they are actually evil.
Yeah.
What, Christians?
Well,
Sorry.
yeah.
Little off topic,
Impossible.
A little off topic, but the idea of bodies preserving just made me think of this incorruptible
For sure.
stuff. Look it up sometime. It's really weird and interesting. Yeah.
That is morbid.
Yeah.
Anything else on incorruptible saints or revenants?
Well, it's all connected. That's where that myth comes from. Where
It's true.
Whereas your
Yeah.
body's like decomposing or whatever, it's receding, and that's why your fingernails look like they're growing when they're not. And same thing with the hair.
Inserting supernatural explanation when they don't know the natural.
Exactly.
I could insert the D&D explanation of revenants if you'd like.
The D&D
They have more hit dice than zombies, but definitely fewer hit dice than vampires. If I recall correctly.
Yeah.
You probably do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds legit.
They're probably faster than zombies too.
Yeah, they might be. I'm not sure.
Depends on the zombies.
Zombies used to move speed 12, but that was second edition.
Oh, okay.
Okay, next topic.
Okay. And we're the geeks.
Yeah.
The DM over here.
You guys are the geeks.
That's how it works.
Okay. Cracking your knuckles gives you arthritis. It is not true.
Apparently, it's a myth.
Synovial fluid is a substance that acts as a cushion and reduce friction in synovial joints, such as knuckles, elbows, knees, and hips. When the joints are stretched and the joint capsule separates, the decreased pressure within the capsule releases gas, forming a bubble to make up for the dead space, which is the pop. Yeah, so you're not doing any damage when you crack yourself. The end.
Does it have any therapeutic value?
Chiropractors seem to think so. As long as there's a pop, pop, pop.
It releases
get pain.
pressure.
Yeah.
It can feel nice.
Yeah.
I just
Bit
can't
of
do it.
traction
It's not
on your
curing
back
cancer.
is nice, but- yeah.
It's not magic. It takes 7 years to digest swallowed chewing gum. See, I knew that was bullshit when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I stopped believing that when my mom told me.
Your stomach has its own brain that sort of calculates how fast it's going to let food out of it, and then the food travels through both intestines until you shit. That's what happens to gum.
Wait a sec.
I think that's pretty obvious.
If you chew gum long enough and it disintegrates, that pretty much gives you the answer as to what's going to happen.
Right,
It doesn't say.
yeah.
That's
If
true.
you've ever
That's the worst
swallowing
feeling ever.
large amounts of gum can cause constipation.
Yeah. You could cause some blockages. That would be the danger.
I don't know how much of gum you digest because I don't know how much is it all useful.
You'd have to
So-
digest a lot, I would think. It doesn't
Yeah.
have an amount here, but geez, I would think you'd have to have a lot.
Yeah, I mean, like digest instead of just passing straight through you.
Right.
I don't know how much of gum just passes because it's not digestible. I don't know. But in any case, it's all used in the same cycle as everything else you consume.
Antibiotics kill viruses. Well, that's obvious. They don't. They attack bacteria.
Oh.
Obviously not a true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Antibiotics don't kill viruses.
No. But there are occasions where what starts out as a virus basically weakens your system enough that
Right.
some bacterial infection then follows. So sometimes it's hard to tell when a virus has turned into a sinus infection, which has become something that would require antibiotics, or a sore throat. You've got strep. You started out with a cold, and now you've got strep, or whatever. So there are I don't tend to take antibiotics very much at all, but there have been a few occasions where I'm like, okay, I have a sore throat. It feels like I have a chemical burn. This isn't right. I'm going to get some antibiotics, and then, sure enough, that fixes the problem. But
The only time I ever go to get antibiotics these days is if I feel like I've got an abscess.
Mm-hmm.
Like a severe tooth infection or gum infection.
Yeah.
That,
I had to get one after my surgery a while back.
right?
Some antibiotics don't even kill bacteria.
Right?
Instead, they just inhibit their ability to reproduce so that your own immune system can take care of it.
Right.
So some antibiotics don't even kill bacteria, let alone viruses. Just saying.
They don't kill anything. Eh?
Some of them. Mm-hmm.
And
I think a fair number of them do kill bacteria.
Right.
But
And overuse of antibiotics will keep those antibiotics from actually being able to do their job if you take them all the time for colds and assorted other shit that isn't caused by bacteria.
yeah.
I was looking up recently. A doctor told somebody I know that they had developed a resistance to antibiotics, and I said that's not quite right, because people don't develop an antibiotic resistance, but they keep getting similar bacteria.
Or
But
you can
that
have bacteria
or,
hanging out in
microbes.
your system
Yeah.
that are basically established in your body that don't really go anywhere, and it could flare up,
Right.
and be.
The problem is with the definition of people. I mean, our gut bacteria is something like 1 to 3% of our total weight. What constitutes a person? Maybe people can become resistant to antibiotics since we have so many bacteria within us.
You've got colonies of bacteria that are basically a part of you.
Yeah. Hey, we're supposed to take a break and save
That's-
shit.
Do you want to help the show out? We've got our Amazon link on the website, and if you buy something, we get a small percentage of that at no extra cost to you. You can donate through PayPal to brainstormpodcast@outlook.com, or you can purchase our premium content and get episodes early for $1 at gumroad.com/brainstorm. And finally, you can become a Patreon patron at patreon.com/brainstormpodcast, and for $1 an episode, you can get the episodes a day before iTunes and Stitcher, as well as the extra content that won't be distributed to regular feed. Any donations at all are greatly appreciated, and as it helps keep the show going.
Magic bracelets.
Magic bracelets.
Magic bracelets. All right, magic bracelets. The only article I have up right now is this Skeptablog version from friggin' 2010, where Brian Dunning totally just kind of shot down the whole idea of magic bracelets.
Are you saying Q-Ray doesn't work?
Oh, yeah, that's the name of it, Q-Ray.
Q-Ray.
Oh, there's Q-Ray, but that's not the name
Life
of the little
Strength is the one
Life
that
Strength
yeah.
ones, or the little rubber bracelets with a
Endeavor.
hologram.
Yes. I worked with a guy who was...
Propaganda by propaganda.
He swore by it, and because he was played for the U of R Rams, he swore that it helped his balance, and I'm just like, yeah, whatever, you're full of shit.
Yeah. Well, there is such thing as a placebo effect. So if you're content to have a
absolutely,
placebo effect
absolutely.
bracelet, then go ahead. Elijah bought one for some silly reason, and I just decided to give it to my daughter because she thought, there was some. She thought it was cute, and it's not going to do her any harm other than being credulous, maybe. But
Yeah.
I told her I thought it was
That counts as
bullshit.
harm.
Yeah, but I don't think she
Agreed.
actually believed that it was doing really anything. So, yeah.
I love these claims about the rubber bands. Your body has an energy field. Your power balance has determined what the optimum frequency should be. A hologram is printed on mylar and embedded with that frequency.
What frequency of what?
Yeah.
The optimum frequency of your personal energy field.
So energy has frequencies now.
But if it's a personal energy field and
I
optimized
don't
for
know.
you, how do they know which bracelet to give you?
Because they
So,
hire a bunch of psychics that
if they have a
read your aura
frequency-
from miles away and just know these things.
If they have a frequency, they'd have to have a wavelength.
Right.
Yeah.
If we're going to employ this kind of terminology, we have to be talking about waves because that's
frequency.
frequency is all about the number of peaks that pass a certain point.
Right.
and-
They're totally using actual physics terminology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
They're misusing
there has
physics
to be a
terminology.
wavelength as well.
That's right.
I mean, it's utter garbage.
It's complete garbage. And how many cents does that even cost? 1 cent to manufacture these things that sell for $20 or $25?
But here's where the real problem is. If it has a wavelength and a frequency, if you have two guys that have, opposite, do they negate each other?
They would.
If they're standing too close together?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
And then, they would just fall over and shit.
So, it's like the cancellation of sound.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
These two guys are
You're
standing too close.
canceling me out.
It's called standing waves.
Yeah, standing waves, exactly.
Standing waves.
Yeah, so there's this area of cancellation so that, these two guys approach each other and they both die.
No, they'd fall over because it's about balance. They'd fall over.
Oh, balance.
Yeah, they'd
Sorry.
fall over.
Right.
I thought it was called life signs or something. I don't know.
Yeah, life strength.
Oh, life strength.
Yeah.
Somebody's making a shit ton of money on credible people.
Yeah.
But, they're not
I believe
the
that's
first.
called the shopping channel.
Credulous, you mean?
Or how many other infomercials?
Did I say credible?
Yes.
Credulous.
Yes.
What was one of the claims here? Because this is, I love
It's
this
like-
article. What's
It is.
startling is that science was never able to discover this, and that this most astounding discovery in both medicine and physics was made by a couple of undereducated 20-something surfers.
I would have never guessed.
Hang 10, dude.
Wow.
No, it's whoa.
Whoa.
Well, let's figure out a scam that lets us go surfing all the time and spend a few hours a day selling worthless bracelets to
And
idiots.
as of this in September 23rd, 2010, they had sold 2.5 million
fuck.
units. So at least 4 times that now. $30 to $60 each.
Yes, because people are gullible. And
Subtract your
I
$2
don't-
per
Dumb.
unit for creation.
Oh, I don't think it would be $2 per unit to create them.
If they're mass producing them on that level.
Yeah, there's very little actual materials in there. Like those, those little bracelets they sell for I support this or I support that. And they've
Right.
got these little diddly bracelets that probably cost 5 cents to manufacture and you buy for $2 in order to fundraise for some organization. So basically their stuff has a little more packaging. Yeah. So including the packaging on the bracelets, probably and probably paying the guy to market them, it's probably under $2 per unit. So that, you've got to include some guy standing at a stupid booth hawking the things. That's a cost. Oh, and the way they do them, I think this was one that they tested on James Randi's show. I think I saw this one. And the way that they try to demonstrate the efficacy of these is you hold out your arms and the guy selling them pushes down your arm with the band on, then pushes down your arm without the band. And amazingly enough, that when you have the band on, you don't tip over as much. And this is supposed to convince people. And actually, I saw them trying to do this in the mall in the one casino in Vegas there.
Jeez, man.
So, but people are stupid.
Yeah. They dealt with that on one of the amazing meetings or something.
I think so.
Yeah.
They were trying to get the $1 million
Oh, I see.
prize thing.
Yeah. Fail.
The challenge, and
Yeah.
they failed the challenge because they actually set up a study where the guy who was pushing on the arm didn't know if he had the bracelet on him or not,
Yeah.
and then he was failing 50%.
Yeah.
He was not guessing whether or not the bracelet was on most of the time, and
Why do we even have to test these things?
because people are stupid.
To show that they don't deviate from chance,
Yeah.
which is to say there's nothing happening.
But isn't it obvious?
Apparently
no.
not.
No.
No.
I don't want to say it is obvious. I think that's unfair. I think it deserves testing.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think only critically accepting conclusions like this guy isn't a psychic.
Well,
I think only
that
critically
seems-
accepting
that seems
conclusions
more-
is acceptable.
That seems more hard to prove or disprove than
That's
this
easy.
rubber band with a hologram is making you stronger. this seems fucking ridiculous on its face. Like, right?
Sure. But it's good to say, hey, we can test that.
Yeah, it's along the
That's
same
true,
lines
yeah.
of, okay, this rubber band, it makes you, it gives you better balance. Well, here, have this crystal and increase your health. Like
It seems ridiculous.
it's
on
all the
its
same.
face.
It's all the same thing. But if you buy into that bullshit, you're gonna
Or
buy
it'll bring you wealth. There's some crystals that are apparently
Yeah,
supposed to
here's a
attract
chunk-
wealth to you.
Here's a chunk of quartz that will attract wealth as you spend $20.
If it attracts wealth, why are you selling it to me for $20? Oh, wait, the $20 is the wealth it attracted.
That's
Oh.
exactly.
Yes, because minerals that were created before money.
Yeah, totally
Somehow attract
incorporate money into their. Yeah,
it's like the
yep.
look at my new lucky rabbit's foot. Well, where did you get that? Off that dead guy?
No.
Wait a sec.
And I'm thinking,
Supernatural explained that though.
wasn't so lucky for the rabbit.
Turns cursed. Yeah, totally. Turns cursed.
Supernatural, quote unquote, explained that. That's awesome.
TV shows can just make up whatever they want.
Yeah,
too.
sure. Hey, as long as it's done witty, it's awesome.
As long as the vampires don't sparkle.
Yeah,
Then we're all good. That's right.
sparkly vampires, all bad.
Yeah, that's right.
So I've heard.
I have yet to watch a Twilight movie or read a Twilight book.
You're not missing
Do
anything.
not
You're not missing a lot. No.
You probably wouldn't like the books, and the movies are totally garbage.
If you're not a teenage
Total
girl,
garbage.
it's really not worth seeing. And if you are, it's not that good an influence because the main protagonist gal is a wet sock of a character.
Yeah,
The main
she's no
protagonist
Katniss.
is addicted to something like heroin. So all of the books are their addiction books. It's not a love story, it's an addiction story. If you can look at it that way, then you can see it as the tragedy that it is.
It is basically that. Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Well, let's just not look for depth in Twilight. Let's just let's just avoid that.
Isn't that the
I'm
mistake
sorry.
we made last
I
time
look for
trying to
depth
find
in
depth
everything.
in country music?
I look for depth in everything. I'm a philosopher.
It's
It's one of my failings.
I think we'd find more truth behind the little rubber band.
If you're not daily walking in a place of relationship to God, then the news that we have to bring you is that you're on your way to hell right now.
Children exposed to religion have difficulty distinguishing fact from fiction.
I wanted to bring that up. I was just reading the details of it like today, but I'd heard about it a little while earlier.
It's interesting because apparently, if a child grows up in a religious household, they
Receive brain damage. I'm
Right.
not. That's not
right.
a joke.
No, it's
Well-
legitimate because they can no longer tell. Like they accept fictional things as real. Just
Yeah. So it said when they, I think I was hearing somebody basically give a synopsis as on a podcast I was listening to, but they said basically the way it's set up, what they expected to happen was that then the children that were never brought up religious would be able to, pick out both the religion stories and the little fairy tales as all untrue, and that the religious kids would distinguish fairy tales as untrue, but not their religious stories. And what they found was that the kids who were brought up religious could not really distinguish any of it, any of the fictional stuff from the true stuff reliably, which is not that terrifically surprising. Once you've accepted that miracles and talking donkeys and talking snakes and
giants,
people
are real
walking
and-
on water and giants and things, well, then some fairies and some vampires and gnomes are not that far-fetched, really.
Yep.
Yeah, which may be one of the reasons that you see, like, religions, they're so quickly kind of bastardized by local religions. So, you take, a lot of the South American Catholicism ends up, or, religion ends up mixed up with different sort of local ideas or mixed up with voodoo or mixed up with.
It's also because it's also a way to incorporate into their culture. If you take elements of theirs and mix it with this,
Yeah.
you can sell it.
Yeah. Yeah, but sometimes you end up with an end product that has a bit of weird dissonance to it, but
it's called Christianity.
They don't mind that. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, dissonances, kind of
Syncretism.
par for the
That's what
course, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how much of stuff in Christianity do we take as, well, this is gospel truth, but yet they've.
How is that even a term anymore?
I don't know.
None of it if you're a theologian. If you're a theologian, you don't take any of it at face value.
But
Right.
that's
That's all
just it. Is
just an
how much
allegory.
of what is
Pretty much,
Christianity has evolved over thousands of years by stealing bits and pieces from other cultures and whatnot. So,
and discarding what they don't like in every revision. And
yep.
Yeah. But what I would like to know is how then do people go from believing all of that stuff to not? Like, you've got as children, they've been brought up. Was brought up, to accept all of those things as true, and maybe you think more. Maybe you think that there's mermaids because, there's. You believe all these Bible stories or whatever, so you can hold various different beliefs. But, some people are able to maybe later in life to separate out the fiction from the not fiction. But maybe that's just a personality kind of thing. And
It's an interesting question. Like, when does the...
for me, it was education. I used to believe on all sorts of woo. I never actually believed that there was an all-powerful sky wizard tyrant.
Yeah.
But I believed in woo shit.
For sure.
But I got some critical thinking skills.
That's what
I
I was gonna say.
really think that's it for me.
I think that's it for a lot of people. I think critical thinking as you get older can open up your mind to a lot of things, right? So
Once you start getting exposed to the wider world,
yeah.
I
mean, I kind of, this almost brings up another topic of like, as a parent, do I tell my kid, yeah, there's Santa Claus, yeah, there's Easter
Right.
Bunny, yeah, there's all these other things.
It's a legitimate question.
Well, because those types of things kind of encourage them to believe in some wacky ideas that have no real merit to them, right?
Yeah.
So
And we're encouraged as parents to tell those, to reinforce those little white lies to kids. And like I basically took the tack with my kids that I wasn't going to reinforce any of that stuff. If they had the notion that there's such thing as Santa Claus, and they asked me if it was real, I just say I have no particular proof for the Santa Claus.
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's
and
more
so
fun.
I never really reinforced it, but we just sort of, they still get the presents. That's what they care about.
Yeah,
they
that's
don't
true. That's
really
true.
care who gives it to them.
And that's what I've always argued to my wife particularly. I'm like, why do we need to?
Yeah.
Like, we can still have tradition and have fun.
Oh, it
and
was funny
all
with
these things.
right.
the tooth fairy thing. That didn't last very long. As soon as her teeth started falling out, my daughter would hide her teeth under the pillow, and then I'd forget to go and do anything about it. And then she'd be all mad at the tooth fairy. So I was like, okay, I'm the tooth fairy. Here's $2. No, shoo. That was the deal. So basically, now they just bring me their teeth and say, Mom, I lost a tooth. Okay, here's $2.
Here's your money.
That's a toonies going rate for a tooth in my house, and that's the end of that.
Back when I was a kid, it was a quarter.
Yeah, me too.
Inflation, tooth fairy
Inflation.
inflation.
But I think that
makes you wonder, is there like a stock exchange?
a toonie for a tooth seems to make sense to me.
Tooth Fairy stock exchange?
Yeah, I give my kids whatever change I happen to have. It changes
Yeah.
every single time.
They catch you on the wrong day. It's
There's no
pocket
standard. The market fluctuates.
Yeah. the market on teeth and tooth fairy land.
It's only so valuable today. You're like,
Yeah.
Sorry, kids. They oversold. It's only worth it.
So what about
Penny now.
what about the opposite then in this topic? Because there's also the opposite is true. People who grow up with no religion, and then when they get older have religion. which is
I'm not sure how that works.
that's a really strange.
I
Because I
don't
think-
know.
Because there's studies out there saying we're kind of hardwired for religion.
yeah,
We are.
exactly.
Yeah.
And there's that element of if you feel like, for whatever reason, if you feel like your life is empty for whatever, that's some people go to religion because
Fill
that
the void.
fills the void. If you have a void for whatever that is, you go hunting for it. And that's where that comes in.
And a lot of the times, those people weren't skeptics or atheists necessarily, as people who were just
Right.
looking for something, right?
Yeah.
They didn't necessarily believe organized religion, but they still believed in God, or they.
And a
still
good
believed-
portion
That's
of the
true, that's
time,
true.
what they found was a spouse who was religious.
Right, right, yeah, and
Oh.
then that really.
A good portion of the time. And then that gives them a real world reason to kind of drop their standards on how they believe things and why.
Wow.
We have all sorts of impulses to drop those standards. That's what Rene said. We're hardwired.
Right.
We're totally hardwired to believe in such things.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want me to go into it, I'm sure.
Why not?
Yeah, like have we ever discovered a single society in this planet that was atheist in isolation?
I think
not
there
sure.
was.
I don't think we
there,
have.
I have heard some podcasts that talked about that.
Yeah.
I think it was on the Atheist Experience one where they had found there was one tribe that had no God belief. They had no, and
Just
so,
one, eh?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I think so.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because the thing is there's a lot of them they may not believe in. Because there's a bunch of, in anthropology, there's a bunch of weird ideas about the evolution of that. You evolve from animism to this to eventually monotheism and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I've never heard of you said that I've never heard of any tribe. Usually they have some kind of
Animism, or they believe in
Something.
tree
Or
spirits.
respect
Something weird.
for ancestors,
Yeah.
some things. But your ancestor worship isn't necessarily, that's not really a belief in a god either.
Well,
It's-
the thing is, I think it all depends on because religion is a reflection of the culture.
Yeah.
It's kind of a two-way street because the religion shapes the culture and the culture shapes the religion.
Sure.
And so as each evolves, the other evolves as well. So like there's that point where maybe they don't believe in a god, but because they have no concept of this idea of a higher existence, like
But some of it's just born out of our instincts, like even the whole ancestor worship thing. When people aren't around, we imagine talking to them. That's just an ability we have. We can talk to people who aren't there. So after they die, it's not like we stop. We continue to talk to them. We continue to have those imaginary conversations. And that sort of thing just leads us toward thinking maybe they still exist in some sense.
because that's one of the hallmarks of what they say is civilization, like is things like burial. When they find
The
evidence
formalized
of formalized burial, or like I was just watching a thing about it was on Netflix, decoding the Neanderthals. And they found which for the longest time they always thought Neanderthals, brutish cavemen, dumber than Homo sapiens. But they found a grave site where they actually found, fossilized panther paws, amongst other things in this grave site. And they're just like, there's no reason for those to be in there other than they were tokens as part of a formalized burial. Yeah. And that was seen as, the beginning, this proves that they weren't as brutish as we assumed.
It doesn't matter how rational they are. That's a function of sentiment, isn't it?
Yeah, and but that's what I think is probably where a lot of that boils out of is that
it all comes from sentiment. I think that's a huge part of it. I mean, the Neanderthals might not be as reasonable as we are, but that doesn't mean they weren't sentimental.
No, but
you can look at your dog and see just how fucking guilty it is for ripping your shoes to shreds. Animals clearly have all of that sentiment. And of course the Neanderthals did.
Yeah, but that's probably where a lot of this comes from, this idea of spirits, ancestors, gods, is and because we are hardwired for it. It's the way we it's evolved. It's how we explain the world around us without any other concepts. So, I mean, I don't know if there is without, I don't know if a culture can exist, in a vacuum and be an atheist one. I mean, because, let's face facts. The concept of atheism in modern society is relatively new.
Yeah, it's rationally produced.
Yeah.
It is. It's not naturally produced out of our instincts to hope and want and wish and feel,
Because even
born out of our ability to think.
In the weirder way, that idea of atheism kind of comes out of more of a. It's kind of replaced the idea, instead of believing wholeheartedly in a god or religion, you go into atheism or rational thought as kind of that higher ideal. So I don't know if it could possibly be come out of in a vacuum.
Yeah.
If there are any, they're definitely anomalous. They're definitely the rare side of things.
Yep.
Should we stop for another save?
Yes.
In the history of the human race, of all the inspirations for the separation of man from his true tribal culture, of all the inspirations for acts of violence from one man onto another, from one nation onto another, from one oppressor onto the oppressed, there is no more guilty party and inspiration than those books known as the Holy Bible, the Quran, and the Bhagavad Gita to spread separation of mankind. The Bible is bullshit. The Bible is bullshit. The Quran is a lie. The Bhagavad Gita did not fall from the sky. These are the books that were written by men. They've caused wars. Now follow if you can. The way our love and gave us fear. Try to make us hate the one who put us here. And they took our sacred songs and made them wrong. And they took away our prayers and gave us theirs. The Bible is bullshit. The Quran is a lie. The Bhagavad Gita did not fall from the sky. These are the books that were written by men. They've caused wars. Now follow if you can. They created sin so they
You got another story loaded up there?
Well, sort of. I got Parallel Science. It's from the Genetic Literacy Project. Parallel Science of NGO, or non-governmental organizations, advocacy groups, how postmodernism encourages pseudoscience. But the article doesn't talk about pseudoscience. It's so much as denial of of science. Like, it's the guys who, while science is going on, they've got this other group that's right along with them going, no, that's false. No, that's a lie. No, that's a lie.
You're talking postmodernism, so you're talking people like Derrida, and you're talking
that's
people.
That's what the article says. So
yeah, the postmodernist movement was really the entire point was to deconstruct everything.
Yeah,
that was Derrida's thing, right? Deconstruction. So that was their thing. That was attack everything. And I mean, that's a little bit too far, but it reminds me of Chomsky. Chomsky
Right.
is all about, I question everything. I was never aware there was any other option. That's sort of the postmodernism movement. So,
well, that seems legitimate.
It does.
You should question things.
But is the conspiracy theory movement sort of a bastard child of postmodernism then?
in some
Because
ways.
if the
certainly.
impetus
It
there
could
is to
certainly be.
question everything, well, they do that, but have no means to distinguish what's real and what's not. So
Yeah.
their ability, yes, you can question anything, but if you have no way of separating truth from fiction, then you're just lost.
Which is where this article talks about never-ending controversies.
yeah,
Which is where we are, right?
this is like seeing it. I got a social work degree, so I mean, postmodernism is very influential in the social work faculty.
I'm sure.
Anti-oppressive social work is all about postmodernism. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like the idea that we're always constantly questioning what's happening so that we can improve it. I mean, that seems scientific to a point. But then there's always the people who are questioning things that don't necessarily need to be questioned.
Right.
Yeah.
They're just reinventing things for the purpose of
Evolution.
giving themselves a job.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
like, but I get it because part of it is like skepticism with the larger structures that control the knowledge, right?
For sure.
And I know as a social worker that's a big thing I have to deal with because a lot of the data, quotes unquotes, that they create in the social sciences is so skewed, like because trying to quantify human behavior is a totally different realm than quantifying physical sciences.
But
you
it
know?
ought not be.
Well, it ought not be, but I mean, we're still very. I think we're kind of babies in that realm. Is what I feel. I feel like we like there's certain things we can identify. There's certain things we can work with, but then they try to be too prescriptive to the point where it's like, yeah, we've solved this. Here's the boxes now that you need to put everybody in. Like that's seriously, like that's what I felt like working within the government for sure. You know, and so who's making the data for what purpose? You know,
It sounds like that sounds like a conclusion taken too far
Yeah.
from data badly derived.
There
I
you
mean, you should have double-blind experiments. You should have people. You know what I'm talking about.
oh, for sure.
You shouldn't be able to draw conclusions like we ought to put everybody in this box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what they do, though, you know. And that's the problem with when you try to create experiments that are prescriptive of human behavior. I think our behavior is so dynamic and so hard to pin down with quantitative data that it's you know, I think it's just self-defeating in a lot of ways.
I suppose the failure of economists is a good example of that.
Yeah.
Of the failure to really pin down human behavior.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
If we could do it so easily, economists would actually have figured out how to prevent a recession by now.
Well, and that's just it, right? So they're very linked. So I don't know. I not that I think we shouldn't do any social sciences. Like I think they're
no.
important, but at the same time, I understand where postmodernists are coming from, and the idea that, you know, like the structures that exist are the ones who direct the science that's being taken in this regard. So of course you have to question all of it. You know, like
There's wisdom and folly, both.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
always is, hey?
yeah. And I mean, like having worked in government systems that are directly linked to that idea, like I can tell you that there's so much bullshit going on in provincial government, like based on scientific research, quotes unquotes, that they've done, and so many ridiculous claims. And really, it's just all, unfortunately, it gets to the point where it's all like self-sustaining bullshit. It's like, we need to put this out there so that the clinical body of this ministry can exist and substantiate itself, and we can keep our paychecks and our pensions.
So it's not reasoning, it's rationalization.
Exactly. And it's like, it's not that some of their data isn't interesting or isn't necessary, but it's too prescriptive. I mean, when you come to when you have certain observations based on your research, then you need to start saying, okay, well, now what's the next phase of this research? Like, what do we question next? Not saying, oh, look at how good this research is, but now this is what we need to base everything off of.
Right.
And that's what happens. And that's what ends up happening, because ultimately they want to sustain themselves, right? So
At the end of every thesis, there's this section called conclusions and future.
And
research.
future recommendations,
Yeah,
all
future
that
recommendations.
shit like that, right? So I got so frustrated with that bullshit because so many of the supervisors couldn't really actually philosophize what I was saying. Like, they couldn't understand like what I was coming up with against the research, that I just got so frustrated to the point where I was like, well, fuck you guys then, and I don't work there anymore. Like I don't want to sit there and work for somebody who just doesn't give a fuck.
Just doesn't care.
And
Just
harms people in the
justifies
process.
their own
And harm people in the process, right? So anyway, that's my rant for the night.
That's fair enough. I think it's a difficult issue because there's a balance to be had between questioning and understanding what's fact.
Yeah.
And it's a difficult balance to strike, I think.
For sure.
Yep.
But I can see the pitfalls of postmodernism as well. Definitely can.
Sure.
Well, because there are things that once it reaches a certain point, you don't need to necessarily question it in the same way anymore. Like, sure, there's people still studying evolution, and they're still studying like the different aspects of how things evolve or what.
They're no longer studying whether traits are passed down from parents to offspring.
Yeah,
they're no longer studying whether, right? They already know evolution's a fact.
Yeah,
so they're just working out the details.
Exactly.
I wonder if the postmodern movement can't be blamed for people questioning vaccines, for instance.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. This idea
and science in general,
the
modern era basically put all the trust in science, and the postmodern era was sort of a backlash against that, realizing that science can send you wrong in some cases.
Yeah, bad science can. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've got to have ethics. You've got to have all of these checks and balances on what sort of things we do, what kind of societies we build, because science doesn't really give you that. So you've got to have that, but that doesn't mean you throw out all the science and just say, oh, well, it's all worthless because the people who are doing the science are flawed human beings who are always biased about things. Well, the whole point of science is to try to eliminate that. And you can't, just because you can't eliminate it 100% doesn't mean that the process is worthless.
But you can in some cases. I mean, you take researchers.
You can have double-blind studies.
Exactly. I was just about to explain what a double-blind study is. Yeah. So you can eliminate bias.
Yeah.
It's possible.
It reminds me of a recent argument on Facebook.
An argument on Facebook?
Yes.
Oh my.
Once again, there's the argument on Facebook.
It was a guy named Jim involved?
There was a guy named Jim involved. And how basically science isn't always 100% right was his argument against something that is basically a consensus at this time.
Science is never meant to be 100% right. That's it's like built into it.
It's a misunderstanding of what scientists do.
Exactly.
No, you're thinking of faith. Faith is the thing that can't change based on evidence.
Exactly.
Science is the thing that does change based on evidence. That's its strength, not a weakness.
Oh, exactly.
I'm sick of people thinking that's a weakness of science.
Yeah.
Agreed. That just reminded me of that.
Yes. How's that for a discussion, Ender?
I was trying to look up a kind of a reverse appeal to authority that I've encountered lately.
Yep.
You're not a scientist, so you can't defend the scientific consensus. I'm not a scientist, so I can attack it, but you're not a scientist, so you can't defend it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the opposite of
Top
what
secret
it
club.
should be.
It's complete
It's
bullshit.
quite interesting.
Usually when I'm attacked, I say, well, look, I'm a philosopher of science. Scientists ask questions about reality. They ask and answer questions about reality. Philosophers ask and answer questions about science. So, yeah, I do have authority to comment on science. Sorry.
Well,
they don't like that answer, though.
No. Well, they also don't like my answer, which was I don't need to be a scientist to accept a scientific consensus.
Yeah.
Like
when we say things like traits are passed down from parents to offspring, I don't need to be a scientist to realize that's true, to realize that dog breeding and horse breeding have taken place. I don't need to be a scientist.
It would be an awful, terrible world
that.
if you had to like be something to like believe in something. You know what I mean? Like, or to accept something, I guess is a better way.
So by that argument, do you have to be an ordained priest to be able to have faith?
to accept.
Well, yeah, exactly,
Nice.
exactly.
There's an excellent response. You're not an ordained priest.
Yeah.
How do you possibly know anything about God?
Oh, thank you
guys
for
aren't
the
social
ammunition.
workers. You can't comment on social issues. Only I can.
Yeah, that's right. Nope. None of us can learn anything except what we specialized in.
I know what the next week of Facebook arguments look like for me now. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
So had someone make some comment about faith to you, and you're just like, "Are you the Pope?
You're not the Pope.
You're not the Pope.
What do you know about faith?
You're not the infallible voice of God on earth."
Yeah.
I hate appeals to authority. I really do.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, somebody with a science background will have a better understanding usually.
Yes. Yeah, usually.
Then, but doesn't mean you can't comment on it based on your understanding. Like,
Well, and the evidence is there for anybody who can grasp it to view, in a sense, right? Like
it should be, yeah.
You don't have to be a scientist necessarily to witness that traits are passed from parents to offspring.
Yeah.
Like that's a pretty obvious example.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious in dog breeding.
Yeah.
It's obvious in everything from plants to animals to whatever, right? Like, it's one of those obvious things.
Stop
You can't make that
denying
comment. You're not a
evolution.
geneticist.
Yeah, that's right, eh? Except every single person on the planet goes, well, my kid got X from me and X from his, the trait from my wife or their mother or whatever.
The only reason our kid has blue eyes is that both of us have blue eyes.
Right. Everybody does that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
That's right.
And if the kid doesn't have those things, you should probably be worried.
Well, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
There's something to be said about that. Two white parents can supposedly have like a sort of black child if
true.
they have a black person in their history.
Right.
Yeah,
Genetic
that's right.
background.
Yeah, it does get a little more
there
complicated.
is a slight bit more to it. Yeah.
Then you might have to do some research.
Okay, wait a minute. Did you cheat on me, or is there something about our ancestry? That
Are
I
you
don't know
actually
about?
black? I didn't know.
Yeah, exactly. Good stuff. I think blue eyes is recessive.
Yes, it
So
is.
I think it follows that sort of thing. Yeah.
I've heard that ever since before I knew anything about anything.
Bullshit.
No,
My
not really.
Too big.
My kid has blue eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Believe it or not, and I think I must have some background in
Right.
that regard because my wife has blue eyes, but usually the brown eyes are the
Yeah,
dominant
it's the
one, right?
dominant one.
Yeah.
So I must have something
You'd
going
be
on.
heterozygous.
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 Oh, way to be
I think
smart.
that's the word.
That is the word. That is the word. Good job.
Good word.
I am so proud of you.
Oh,
And you've
I'm
created
so
the title
pleased
for
I
this
impressed
episode.
you. I pulled that out a long ways back in my head.
What is that?
It's a little card with the words heterozygous.
Oh, Mike just recorded that.
Cool. Yeah.
Just to confirm you got the word right.
Yeah. So heterozygous and homozygous. So basically means you have two genes of every trait. And if they're both the same, then you're homozygous. If you've got
Right.
one that's the dominant one that's recessive. So you basically got a blue-eye gene and one brown-eye gene and one blue-eye gene. So your phenotype is brown, but when you can throw off some kids with blue eyes.
With blue eyes.
Mm-hmm. Anyways.
I have some of the master race in my background. So
This
is terrible. My Uber mention, was that what they call it?
She also described my blood disorder.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which is the card that I passed to her.
Oh, okay. So if you were homozygous for your blood disorder, would you be dead?
Well, given the episodes I've had, yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
I happen to be alive.
Therefore.
So not so bad.
A local storm damaged a Regina church. I guess that's a thing.
God doesn't like them.
Yeah. Well, God
It was like the only building in the city that was seriously damaged.
God didn't protect it.
You would think maybe the people in the church would take that as a judgment on something, but the rest of us are just going, yeah, whatever.
Isn't that
There's,
the catch-all?
randomness.
God works in mysterious ways.
I don't know.
That's true. That is
Maybe God is a
generally
hipster
catch-all.
dick and loves irony.
Yeah, hipster.
I don't know.
Maybe. He liked everything before it was cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
nice.
Maybe they were masturbating too much. I saw your article about, I think it was you who posted that.
the 17-year-old who got struck by lightning.
Yes, the girl who was masturbating under the tree and got killed by lightning.
Maybe someone was masturbating in the church.
Exactly.
Pretty sure that's
I haven't been struck by lightning yet.
satire site.
I tell you. I've been doing a lot
I've
of
been worried a couple
experimenting.
times.
You've been collecting your own data, so to speak.
Yeah. Decades of it.
Yeah, no, that's got to be a satire site.
I hope so.
Stop masturbation now. Yeah.
Other than, didn't you prove that one other time that is an actual thing, like the stop masturbating cross thing for the kid?
Oh, no, it is definitely a thing. There's a guy named Christopher West. He's a Catholic dude, and in his talks, he always talks about, go like this every time you're tempted to masturbate, and put your hands on a cross,
Right.
and Jesus will come and stop you from, I don't know.
And masturbate for you.
That's an actual This is an actual technique, though, right? The cross, the hands.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And then you
an
have to
actual
have
prevention
you have to have
technique.
your masturbation support buddy.
Yeah,
your
yeah.
support network, so that you can
This is
call
true.
So that
them
they
when
can
you're
support-
when you're tempted to
Your support.
masturbate.
Wait a minute. I have a wife. Is that my masturbation support?
As long as you're having
that's
sex
what-
with her without
That's
protection.
what wives are good for. They're supposed to keep you from
It's
from
one of the
abusing
things.
yourself.
That is not all she's good for.
According to Christians, that's the main use.
That's their main use.
Yes, according to Christianity.
Well, there's the chance of having babies, but even if you couldn't have babies, at least it'll be keeping you from abusing yourself.
This is true.
But then again, that's why Kellogg's cornflakes was invented too.
Oh,
Yeah, and I think the guy that
Okay, now you
elaborate.
got
the Kellogg's guy was kind of a weird anti-masturbation guy, and he thought
Is that
that the
right?
cornflakes was good for cooling your blood or something.
Well,
You should
it's
eat
more like-
cold cereals instead of hot.
It was more of along the lines of
something.
he made stuff that was kind of bland in flavor and whatever, because
Oh, yeah.
if you excited the senses and that excited everything else, and
Yeah.
as if people don't add sugar to their fucking
Well,
Rice Krispies.
Rice Krispies, that is
Well,
what
that's
he
very
invent-
exciting.
Yeah.
Too much exciting.
Yeah, it's too much exciting. It's like snap, crackle, pop, jerk off.
That's the title.
Now, Crackle Pop.
Yeah, that's right, eh?
That's exactly what I used to do.
That is totally the title. Snap,
for some reason that played in my head, like according to the music.
Snap, Crackle Pop,
Jerk off. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I got.
I think if
Nice.
you're getting a snap, crackle, pop phenomenon, you probably have a problem.
I'm
Maybe.
thinking if you're that excited by cereal, you have issues.
There's got to be one.
There may have
person
been
like
some
that.
repression. In,
Yeah,
in
I don't
place.
know.
If there's a guy who like gets off on balloons, there's definitely a guy who.
Oh, probably.
Gets
Oh
off
yeah,
on
yeah,
cereal.
that's right. And there's apparently a whole culture of people who get off on the whole popping of balloons.
Exactly. So
Wow.
Yeah, it's a
Anyway.
thing.
Before we get too much farther down
That's
that
sinful.
rabbit
That's
hole.
sinful.
Yeah, because all I can think of right now is I'm wondering how many guys have been banned from the cereal aisle. I'm not allowed to go down that aisle.
Mike commented when I shared that link. He said, "Unrelated photo?" Question mark.
Oh, yes.
That's quite funny.
Yeah, the unrelated photo is awesome. Yeah, I have no idea if that site's
Why
legit.
is there a question mark?
Because the site is bullshit.
Why is there a question mark?
I know.
Yeah,
Unrelated photo? Question mark.
Yes, it's unrelated.
For some reason, that hit me pretty hard. I was laughing pretty hard at that.
Well, because I, yeah, no, that's awesome. That's it, and thanks for listening. All of the relevant links will be posted in the show notes at brainstormblog.net. If you want to keep up to date with the show, come on over and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/brainstormpodcast or follow us on Twitter at brainstormpod. If you want to support the show, head on over to patreon.com/brainstormpodcast and give $1 an episode. Or if that's too much, then go and give us a rating and write a review on iTunes or Stitcher. This episode's shout-outs go to Vipin, hope I said that right, or yeah, and the Facebook page, The Question. Thanks for liking the page. Thanks to Lorena, Elliot, Ken, Aaron, Tracy, and Claire for interacting with the page. And thanks again to Lana for being the best of the best by supporting the show through Patreon. This episode's podcast shoutout is actually going to go to Atheists on Air. I reference them a lot, and they're probably one of my favorite podcasts. It used to be Cash and Love hosting, but now it seems like they've had a switch, and now it's Cash and Carrie, with the ever-popular Professor Steven, of course. I think I like it because they're basically regular guys with a real passion for the atheist movement. They're really entertaining, and you really have to listen to the bits with the pastor from the trailer park. You can find them at mythunderstoodalliance.com and facebook.com/atheistsonair. By extension, I have to give a small shout out to Lucifer's Young Ladies. I haven't had the pleasure of listening to their podcast yet, but by all accounts, they give an intelligent and entertaining look at what it's like to be an atheist teenager in a religious community. If you have a suggestion for the podcast shout-out, just shoot me an email at corey@brainstormblog.net, or if you have any comments, criticisms, questions, or accolades for the show, you can click our contact page on brainstormblog.net or email us at mail@brainstormblog.net. Music for this episode is Thick as Thieves by Drykill Logic and The Bible is Bullshit by Corporate Avenger. Thanks again for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good one.
Oh, and we have
What?
to get in our fuck Harper yet.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we got to
We missed
redo
it.
our
I'll
fuck
redo the fuck Harper.
Yeah.
Didn't we get through that already?
No, we talked about medical conspiracies. This one is myths that people believe.
Was that Astar?
I can't
Yes,
remember.
that's right.
Yeah,
That's
Astar,
right.
yeah.
Classic commercial. Oh my god.
Maybe we should get back to the article.
Sure, yeah.
We're
like-
off in the weeds a little bit here.
Yeah, way.
Speaking of weed, no, just kidding. Quick shave. Quick save.
Quick shave.
That's fine. It's always nice to have some more recent ones because by the time the new episodes come out, like if they were they were almost 2 weeks old when you made up the list, and then 2 weeks later we've released an episode, then it's like a month old news.
Yeah.
So it's nice to try to minimize that a bit.
What was the number? What?
I said something like 1 to 3%. That's what I said.
One.
Yeah. It's something like that.
I think I misheard you then.
Well, what did you hear?
I don't remember. I think 1/3.
Oh no.
That's why I was like, bullshit, it's 1/3.
That's
What
not
size
right.
of crops do you have?
People are fucking assholes.
Well, they are.
Looks like I haven't said anything in a while.
You haven't. Your mic is fairly empty right there.
I've actually been saying shit for once. So have you.
It's been fairly balanced, actually.
It's good. It's good. Yep.
Usually it's just Lana talking and the rest of us listening.
Unless it's geek topics, and then
Unless it's
Yeah.
geek.
Yeah.
she zones us out.
Yeah.
I'd try to find interesting subjects on my phone.
I wish I could share a YouTube video right now. I have a YouTube video that's perfect for this. But
Well, we'll post it in the show notes. So.
yeah,
Yeah.
we should. I should find
Yeah.
it. Yep.
But Mike still doesn't have his headset on.
He's working on it.
That's fine.
Just got to get the lean back on. And
Lean back.
It's all good.
Is it all good? All right.
thank you, good sir. Cheers.
Cheers.